Hey everybody, it's Miguel from WaveForm Tuning, and we are here with another customer interview. Today, we are in Monterey, California, with the one and only Mark Bruno somewhere back here. Where's he at?
I'm hiding in here.
There he is. What's up, dude?
Staying away from the camera. The cameras scare me.
Well, we're gonna have a lot of cameras.
I scare easily.
Aw,
Yeah.
so cute.
Yeah.
Well, let's go talk about your car a little bit. Sounds like a plan?
Yeah, your mic's in here.
Heck yeah.
I'm guessing you want this.
Yeah, I'll keep it for now. I have too many things.
I got a couple of those at home.
Oh, you know, preparedness,
You're like,
whatnot.
oh yeah, well you know.
It's fine. Oh, yeah.
Probably a little better in this light, huh? I'll leave the doors open.
Super sick. That's a 10-inch sub, right?
Yeah, it's a 10. It's actually 10 and a half. Dust cap.
For the dust cap. All right, so everyone pretty much knows who you are.
No,
but
they don't.
Let's
but
introduce yourself. Who are you?
I'm Mark Bruno.
What's up, Mark?
What's going on?
How's life?
Miguel.
Life
Thanks
good?
for coming to Pebble Beach.
Of course, dude. It was a blast. Thanks for having me out here.
No, I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, dude. I had a little bit of delay, but
Yeah, well, you know, flying sucks.
yesterday.
So does United. I'm guessing that's who you flew with.
No, I just flew with American, and that's my
That's
problem.
United.
See,
too.
that's
Same thing.
that was my issue.
Yeah.
So tell me about your car. What year is it? We have a plate that says Wideeye, but I don't think that's a actual trim of this car. So tell me about it.
No, so this is a 2019 Dodge Challenger Redeye.
Okay.
Widebody.
Nice.
So that's where the Wideeye came from. One of my buddies, actually the guy who did the wheels at Triumph Forged.
Yeah.
He and I were talking, and I'm like, well, it's a Widebody, it's a Redeye. He goes, Wideeye.
Wideeye.
And I'm like, so that's where the plate came from.
Yeah.
Because they were brand new. Nobody had them yet. The Redeye was brand new, and the Widebody was brand new.
Yeah.
So
that was cool.
Yeah, one of the.
This color's called Plum Crazy, right?
It's Plum Crazy. It goes back to the old 71
Wow.
Charger, if I remember.
Yeah.
So that's when Dodge kind of started doing like the more impactful colors, and then the rest of the industry kind of followed suit. From what I understand, I could be wrong. But
Yeah.
I make shit up all the time. You
It's
know
a
that.
beautiful color.
Yeah,
that's for
thank
sure. So we have the Crazy install. But before we get into that, one thing I noticed is that you have the coolest carbon fiber that I've ever seen on any other car. So what made you? I'm guessing that's not factory.
No.
So what made you go with the honeycomb style carbon fiber?
Well, I just like the way it looked. It's not regular carbon fiber.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit unique. Plus, there's a theme you can do around the whole car with that. So when you look at the interior, you'll see we've done like a honeycomb shape on the doors, on the seats. So just to be different, really more than anything.
No, it looks.
And then you can see like behind the seat, even you can see the honeycomb carbon follows through. We also did the Plum Crazy paint on a lot of the parts, including the amplifiers in the back, the processor, and then we did this Hear No Evil, See No Evil, Speak No Evil concept.
Got you.
Where you can see it in the dust cap, you can see it on the amplifiers. So that's actually hydro dipped.
Wow.
And you see the amps over here have it. So we just kind of continued that theme throughout the car. It's under the hood. And the idea, this was a kind of a show car first and a competition car second.
Gotcha.
So the first iteration they installed didn't look anything like this, other than the front stage was exactly the same.
Okay.
But then we kind of changed it all up with Brian.
Yeah. So Brian
I wanted to switch
Mitchell.
to ARC Audio. Yeah, Brian Mitchell. Yeah.
Got you.
So I wanted to switch it all up to ARC Audio, and I was having issues with a processor from a different manufacturer that many competitors know about. So we
start with a Z.
I'm not at liberty to say anything like that, but so switching it to the ARC processor and the SE amplifiers has made a huge difference in stability on this car and all that.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I was tuning this car yesterday and this morning. I could definitely notice just how stable the ARC PS8 is. Even when the car times out, you're not freaking out. It's just turn it back on and it's right back where you left off, and you're good to go.
Exactly. It's pretty well established piece, and I know they got a bunch of new stuff out now with the DNA software. So
But we didn't do that with this. We have still the old software on it because Mark is old school.
Well, it is what it is, right? That's what I'm used to using, and so no need for me to change.
And it works.
Same thing with my wife's truck too. We haven't changed it yet.
So we have the SE amps. How many do you have in total?
So there's 3 amplifiers total. There's 2 6-channels. I'm sorry, 2 4-channels and a 2-channel.
Gotcha.
So 2 4200s, 2 4200s, 1 2300.
Got you. And then you have the Stereo Integrity. 24. True Infinite Baffle. Nice. And then the ARC PSA Pro
is over on the side over here.
And then just the killer build. And then Brian Mitchell. How long did Brian take to build this?
He had the car for a year, but there was a bunch of other stuff we were working on at the same time. So it wasn't really, we were waiting on stuff for a lot of that.
It's this piece here that I love. Like kind of like
so
floating.
This was kind of interesting. Robert Boyd and I were sitting here looking at it, and it had that piece, only it was like a typical strut brace. And what we did is came up with the idea of cutting it and reversing it so the strut goes down instead of up and over, so we could lay the amps on it.
That's cool.
And so it's still structural. It helps
with the car and whatnot.
Keep the car real stiff, but then also makes a pretty cool amp rack.
No, it's a sick amp rack.
Well, and then we got the 1 amp is hanging in the front side. That you can see.
You kind of see like the power wire at the back.
And this vehicle was ordered with the rear seat delete. So we actually created a hatchback kind of a style with this. So we're not firing through a seat cushion or whatever. And if you ever listen to a station wagon or a hatchback versus a trunk car, the bass sounds different in those two cars. 100%. It loads better this way, and so that was kind of by design. We ordered it that way for that.
And it's nice. Unlike my car that I have these huge quarter panels, you don't really have to worry too much about that. So you have the advantages of having that nice pass-through without worrying about quarter panels 4 feet long.
Exactly. And for those of you who say I never drive the car, you can actually see it was out in the rain. You can see it's dirty right now, if you want to call that dirty.
By the rain,
does get driven.
He just backed it up from the garage and just let it rain. For this video, that's what happened.
You can see this is dirt. It's actually dirt on there. I drove it up to San Jose and back for a show up there. And drove it around town at the Laguna Seca. They had a Cars and Coffee with like 1,500 cars. It's pretty cool.
I mean, it does get driven, but definitely a showstopper. When you see it, one, it looks cool. The wrap that you have on it, all the forged carbon fiber on the roof and whatnot. And it seems like you extended that on the hood as well.
Yeah, we've got some other stuff that we're working on right now. There's a new rear diffuser coming for it that is carbon fiber to match this,
nice honeycomb,
and a couple other little surprises to kind of make it more consistent.
Well, let's go inside and actually hold up before we do that. Let's show the engine, and then let's go inside. Because you continue the theme, guess that's really good install of the See No Evil, Speak No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Yeah, so if you look at the amplifiers in the back, this was done prior to doing the amplifiers. And we also had these engraved by a company called Billet Technologies in Florida. And then since they did this car, saw what we're doing theme-wise, they actually took the lids on the SE amplifiers and did the same pattern in them, which is really cool. So it's real consistent throughout that way.
And then, of course, you got just a baby. Is that 2.3 liter Whipple supercharger on there? 2.4?
Yeah, it's 2.7.
2.7.
Yeah, the Redeye comes with a 2.7. That's tiny, just the supercharger, obviously.
My car has a 2.5 liter engine.
Exactly. Yep.
And your supercharger has as much displacement as my whole engine.
Exactly.
Gotta love it.
It's only 800 horsepower, so
that's it. That's nothing.
Yeah, it gets great gas mileage too for anybody that wants to know.
And then here we have that honeycomb carbon fiber, and this is a wrap, right?
Yeah, this is a wrap.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the next iteration of the front end of this car, we're probably going to do a carbon fiber hood to match the carbon.
That'd be cool.
And then we'll change graphics up at that point because the graphics are starting to get a little tired.
Gotcha.
Just because, all the cleaning and whatever. It's just a matter of time.
And how long have you had this car? You bought it brand new in 19?
I bought it brand new. We got it in December of 2018.
Gotcha.
And Car Audio Nuts will love this. 2 weeks later, it was in Arizona with the entire interior ripped out, including the dash.
Nice.
So the car was brand new, and these are not inexpensive cars, but stripped it all the way down. There's a bunch of little things we did in here that people don't even realize, like relocating the brake. the parking brake. It's
on.
now on electric struts. We cleared out that whole section so we could do the mid-bass drivers where we did
inside
them.
the dash.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, let's go inside. That little WaveForm sticker over there.
Yeah.
He's gonna put that at the very front. That's what he said. He's gonna put it right here in the middle.
Yeah, I'm gonna scotch tape it on there. So I told Miguel.
Well, you go ahead and go on the other side. I'll flip the camera around and we'll kind of just talk. So, real quick, and then I'll hop in with you. Tell me a little bit about your install. Before I get copyrighted, you might turn the music down a little bit before they get me on there. I'm just terrible.
Oh, yeah, the copyright.
Yeah. I need to just start creating my own jazz music.
Yeah.
So, this is not your typical mid-range tweeter mid-bass install. So why did you end up choosing, well, first, what are these?
These are Bollinger-Graebner ribbon, or planers, as a lot of people call them. They're ribbon mid-ranges. So they actually have a pretty wide band that they'll play depending on how you use them.
Yeah.
But the main reason is I fell in love with these things a long time ago. We actually developed a product with Bollinger-Graebner for Eclipse, and we're going back 1,000 years ago when I worked there and helped do a lot of the speaker development for them. So first time I heard them, I totally fell in love. It's a totally different kind of a experience listening to a ribbon driver versus listening to a conical driver, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
And the reality is, the voice coil is flat,
Yep.
and it's set right against basically what you would consider a cone.
Yep.
And they're just very fast and super transparent.
100%.
You can look
very
at
transient.
Yeah, you can look at time plots on them, and they're they start and stop really fast.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the beauty of having ribbon, AMTs,
planar
drivers.
Exactly.
That instantaneous.
Yep. Less distortion is really what it is.
100%. Until you start going too low, and then that's a different story.
You try to overdrive them, and then they start to distort at that point. So they do have limits on bandwidth and power.
Yeah. But, I mean, I feel like we got some good volume still out of it. It's not like we're limited to 80 dB or something.
Yeah, no, these things will, I know they've been judged with one of the orgs out there at I think 103 or 107 dB, depending on which judge it was judging them. And of course they're going to break up when you're driving them that hard in a car.
Yep.
So it is what it is. They have limits.
And then we have that big screen. Yep. What is that?
That's actually a Samsung screen, and basically what it's doing is with Bluetooth, it's controlling a FiO, so it makes it easier to, operate. We're actually in the process right now. This piece was just redone, and we just sent it off to get skinned.
Okay.
Hopefully, it'll be done in time to make it to Aggieland. I'm not 100% sure. But we'll have a volume control track up and track down right here. Nice. And we'll take this air level controller and it's flushed in down here. It'll just clean things up.
Yeah.
I lose a drink holder, which I never use in this car, and I've got one on the side anyway. I do need it for trips.
Well, let me go inside with you, and then we'll talk about the mid-bass orientation and other tuning stuff.
Cool.
It's nice. So I know you guys missed that because we had to flip it. He said the speaker for the beeper has been cut.
Yeah, when we had the dash out, I was talking to one of my installers at the time, and I'm like, dude, how do we get rid of the beep? He goes, well, I can get rid of it right now.
Yeah.
And he literally had the little box, the back of the cluster where the speaker was, and he just went in and snipped it. And he goes, you're not going to get it back.
Like, good, I don't want it anyway.
Yep.
So yours is one of the rare cars that are like mine.
Yeah.
Wait,
I think yours is like mine.
No, because mine comes from the factory.
Yeah, but when did you get it?
23.
See, that's 202019, dude. Yours is like
so
mine.
You're saying Mazda copied you?
For car audio. That's what I think, yeah. I'm
Mazda
going with that.
copied
I'm going with Mazda 100%. Copied this car.
So,
I saw it at a show.
Mazda copied you. And we have mid-basses, 8-inch, inside the dash.
Yep.
Which a lot of people freak out about, but it works out extremely well.
It actually works really well, yeah. I
so
mean, there's
some
challenges.
Oh, of course.
Well, I did it actually, Scott told me about it in a Charger that he did way back when.
Scott Welch,
yeah.
Gotcha, yeah.
And he was saying, hey, if you're going to do this car, this is where you want to put them.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, they're literally right below the enclosure for the mid.
Yep.
In terms of height, they're probably, like the top of the speaker's probably that far below it.
Yep.
So time-wise, they're where they should be, a home speaker would be stacked.
Yeah, 100%.
And it just does a really good job of giving you that space out in front of you. Yeah, exactly.
And it's also wide. Is yours like bolted to the frame of the car? Like
It's bolted on the side. We didn't open the rails up on the car to the exterior. So you're not like cars that are vented outside, they get really loud outside.
Yeah.
We didn't need to do that with this car to get the bass up front and to have enough impact. So we never did it. I didn't really want to cut a hole to the exterior of the car up in that part of it where there's kind of some structural stuff up there, right?
100%.
So we didn't have to do that. And it seems to have worked really well.
Yeah.
We can integrate that big subwoofer in the back with the front end.
No problem.
Most people would think the 2.8s wouldn't keep up with the 24, but it does a pretty good job.
I mean,
and I think a lot of that is kind of how it loads under the dash.
Well, that plus people forget that you have a gain structure on a DSP and just turn down the 24. I mean, if you want to have fun, that 24, regardless of what you have up front, can just get.
When I first had the 24 in here, I was doing a little show during car week at the fairgrounds here, and one of my buddies wanted to hear what the bass was, and I happened to have my laptop with me, so I cranked it up. And dude, the rear trunk at the hinge, this side of it, was moving, I kid you not, like close to 2 inches. And then it was like a rattle fest after that. I had to go back and
just
everything up.
Fix everything.
Yeah.
How much power do you have going to that 24? And just the rest
It's about 1,200 watts.
Okay.
So it's a 2300 SE bridged.
Yep.
I think it's at 4 ohms. I think these are dual 2 ohm. That's a dual 2 ohm driver, if I remember right.
And then you
I have a good memory, but it's it's old.
It's old. You have to wait till it boots up a little bit.
Exactly.
And then how much power do we got going to the mids, the mid bass, and tweets?
So these are 42. It's two 4200s. One does the left side, one does the right side. Okay. 2 channels are bridged for the mid bass driver, so that's going to be, I want to say it's 600 watts.
Gotcha.
And then these guys are running 200 watts a piece.
Yeah.
So it's way overrated power.
Yeah.
Like the ribbons are, if you can look these ribbons up, and they're rated, I think, for 12 watts or something like that. And they'll handle a lot more than that. But obviously, we were getting on it pretty good.
We were. We were definitely having fun. We were playing the Chinese drum song.
Yeah.
And you started blinking a little bit. It's like, that's when we were doing it.
Exactly.
So let's move on to that. So everyone knows this car, at least in the lanes, and it does extremely well.
Yep.
You and I
sometimes.
You and I have exchanged blows a couple times. You win one, I win one. We just go back and forth having fun. Yep. So why did you call me to come out here and see what I could do?
Well, I mean, the main thing was, I have a smart system. I have the same mic that you had. We have one of the original ones with Brian and myself that Nathan did.
Yeah.
And, I'm pretty good with an RTA and all that. But when it comes to IR and all the other stuff that's out there, I'm used to like an EQT or two where you're turning little knobs and all that. So, you're totally into the technical side of that stuff. You're doing this kind of for a living.
Yep.
So for me, I thought it would be good to see where we were in terms of time alignment in here, which was primarily by ear in this car, and then to see what you would come up with. And I think what we ended up with is a really good blend between you doing your thing technically and then me kind of you adding some of the things that I like
you wanted back to it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still my car sounds the way I like it to sound, yet it's got, I think, a better foundation than it had before.
100%.
And, if you're a car audio guy and you're into tuning your own stuff, I mean, unless you're doing this every day, it's really hard to learn all of the tools that are out there and become kind of an expert. Dude, you took this car, I think in 2.5 hours, had it where it was dialed, and it would have taken me,
2 years.
2.5 years to do it, right?
And it's just the data. I understand what the data is telling me, and I can see what's happening. Like you saw me with the mid bass.
Yeah.
When I put the EQ in, it wasn't giving it to me. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And you saw me like redo it like 4 times until like what it said made sense in my head, and then I moved forward. And the big thing was that when you hopped in, you're like, man, like the bass is tighter.
Exactly. It's more focused. There's more impact. Yeah. It's not louder.
No.
Right?
No.
But you can see everything is aligned and is hitting all at the same time.
Exactly.
And that made a huge difference. I mean, I was going to say, there's a lot of guys out there that like to tune and think that they're really good at tuning. Like, a lot of people tell me, oh my God, you make it sound so great.
Yeah.
The reality is there's the technical side of things where you're looking at the tools and, like you say, looking at the data and making sense of that. And then there's what really makes the car sound great is once you have that really good foundation, then you go in and you can do the EQ work.
Exactly. And what you saw me do.
Yeah.
I got in the car, and luckily for me, I guess it's probably what helped me dial this car in so quickly, that I also have the mid-bass side of my dash.
Yeah.
So I know what issues these mid basses will have.
Yeah,
and I was quickly just picking things up.
Yeah.
And it was to a point where I dropped 80 hertz and 100 hertz, and I rolled down the window, and you were like, 80?
Yeah.
I was like, yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, yep, just dropped it. And he's like, yeah.
80, 100, 125 in here wants to gain. 44 hertz in the back wants to really gain in this cabin.
Always.
And
60 hertz as well wants to get a little out of control on the back. And these are just things that you can't. Well, maybe some people say they can, but I don't see how you can do that with an RTA. You just hop in, playing sine waves, and you're just going back and forth. Going back and forth until things make sense.
Well, and the graph is only going to do so good, right? You can have a target that you're trying to EQ to, and you can make it where it's perfect. Like you had it, like, you know, he's a little bit anal where if any of the red squiggly line is showing over the actual trace, he gets like a little bit crazy. And I'm kind of the same way, which is kind of overdoing it, right?
100%.
But that's okay. I mean, that's just the personalities that you have when you want to get this thing
you want to get
to that
that
level.
Yeah.
And then once you get all that, you're just changing it all anyway. What we ended up with is a squiggly line. Right?
The squiggly lines have to align for our ears to be happy.
That's right. That's right.
And if I probably put the RTA back, it'll probably look all funky. But...
yeah, it does.
All right.
I mean, I don't know of the cars that I know of that do really well and sound really good. None of them are a flat curve.
Yeah, and they're not gonna be
a flat curve.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. They're not. It's not just a target.
Yep.
There's more.
It's a starting point. It's really what it is.
And it should be able to get you to, let's say, 80%, 85%. Yeah. Especially if the data you're reading is accurate.
Yep.
But then it's that last percentage that people go when they hop in, they're like, "Wow, how'd you do that?"
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Really, it's just training your ears and going back and forth with pink noise. I mean, how many times did you just hear pink noise, bailing pink noise, sine waves?
You would be listening to stuff, and then you'd be bouncing back to pink noise and sine waves and that kind of stuff, and then listen more and bounce back. And put your headphones on.
Whatever. Yeah. And I also got my
definitely
headphones
have a process.
Yeah. And the big thing is like, towards the end when you hopped in, you're like, wow, and you're like really happy. You're like, but I want the image a little bit more forward. And I was like, listen, it is 10 p.m. here, which means it's like, 10, like 1 at my time. I was like, I've been up since 3 a.m. Eastern time. I was like, I'm going to go to bed. I'll wake up in the morning and I will figure out what he wants.
Yep.
And how can I get that while still keeping my tonality, my imaging and all that by just moving it forward.
And it's kind of ironic because we ended up with kind of a hybrid. We talked about it last night, doing sort of a hybrid part of the tune, which is where I had it before and where he had it now, where I think you're somewhere in the middle of that.
Pretty much.
And
it was the upper range for people like wondering. It was between 4 to 8K. His was up and mine was like more level. And that was that presence. And when I took a U mic, I also always bring my U mic 2 at me. I was like, let me just see what my body's doing in this car. Because we're both big dudes. And I was like, what? No,
you're a big guy?
No. I'm
not a big guy. I don't know about you.
Well, I fit very comfortable in this car, unlike my car.
You should get one.
No, I can't do that. Bree will kill me. But I was like, okay, what is the difference? And I didn't care about the mid-range, low end. I didn't care about that. I was really looking at like the high frequencies. I knew that was the difference that you were looking for. And then I found it instantly. And then I showed you. You were like, oh, that's what's happening. And then I was like, okay, he really wants that. I can get him that.
Well, it's just the signature that I've always, you just heard another car that I've tuned, and you can hear my wife's truck, and they all have that, because I haven't had a meter in this car probably in 2 years. So where it was doing well at all these shows was just by ear.
Yeah.
And at some point when you're doing things by ear, you get a little off track and you go down the rabbit hole. So I thought it would be good to go back and, get the good foundation put back on it like you did. And then from there, you got in here and kind of tuned it the way I like it. And now I can go and do my thing with it afterwards.
100%.
And so, and I started to say this earlier, I mean, anybody who thinks they're, a tuner but doesn't know all the technical aspects, dude, you'd be a fantastic guy to get in, because you're not going to make it sound the way you want it to sound.
Yeah.
You're going to make it sound the way it should sound technically, and then from there, you can help people make it sound the way that they like it. Because music, I mean, after all, is a personal thing,
it's
right?
subjective.
Yeah, totally. But it's beyond subjective. It's also what you like personally.
For sure.
And there's certain things with an image or a stage that set things, to me, it's one of the things that sets this car apart from other cars. That's one of the signatures of it, I guess you can say.
But for people who, the image, it's like he wants it here, like the center vocalist, and then everything else like be back. Where I had it, this was the center vocalist pushed back a little bit. It was like here-ish. So really, I just took the high frequencies 4 to 8K, use a really low Q, and just bumped that up until that vocalist kind of like shifted forward without messing up the tonality. And then that's when I did that. Then I went back to band limited pink noise, making sure that Michael Jackson wasn't screaming.
Yeah, make sure we didn't screw anything up in the process, right?
And it seemed like I didn't. So
the other thing we talked about is people think depth is how far back your stage is. And the reality is depth, by definition, is how deep it goes.
How deep it goes
so
from
it
the
has
start.
to start somewhere. Yeah. And when you go to a concert, I've never been to a concert where the lead singer is behind the drums and behind all the instruments. They're always forward, right in front.
100%.
So to me, that's how a car should present
itself. Yeah.
And most of the cars I listen to don't do that. They're kind of flat in the back. So that's just a thing that I like. Yeah. Right.
And at the end of the day, and you know, I have all this on my website and my Facebook. It's like, I'm gonna make it where I love it, and I'm gonna hop you in the seat because I'm here in person. And I'm like, what do you want? And we did that, and you told me like, Miguel, I love it, but this one little thing, and I'm just like, okay, cool. And what I do? I hopped in it, and I worked to get what you wanted, and I hopped you in it, and you're like, yes, perfect. This is what I wanted, and moving on. And that doesn't mean.
Hey, well, I didn't say perfect.
Oh yeah.
Like. What's perfect?
Never ending.
Exactly.
Which I was just about to mention. It's like, at the end of the day, I think this car sounds better than it did before, especially in terms of just tightness and cohesion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, and the biggest thing I think it did is it tightened up a lot of the imaging and all of that. Because there were a couple of things were off. It's kind of interesting. Miguel was telling me he looked at where the timing was and where it is, and the timing in here was done almost entirely by ear at this point between Robert Boyd and I know Brian was in it a couple of times back, and he hasn't been in it in a while to make any adjustments. But we were, I think you said what?
0.22 in total between left and right.
So it was pretty crazy how close things were to begin with, and that was what, mostly the mid?
That was a mid and tweet.
The mid tweet combo.
Yeah, just that separation between the tweet mating up to the mid range. And that's really where the cohesion was coming from, is the tweeter and mid-range are now acting as one unit. Versus beforehand, I think we were overcooking, I call it overcooking, the timing of the tweet to push that forward. Now I left that there and I just use EQ.
Well, and it's also, you know, if there's a downside to a line source, a planar, you can look at it. Like if you shoot the picture of that right now, you can see the tweeters all the way on the far right, and then that whole mid-range is producing the same sound, basically.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get the timing where it should be. You know, should you be timing it in the middle? Should you be hitting it on this edge? Should you be hitting it right here? And I was just looking at the distance between them when we kind of set that.
No, of course.
And so I didn't have like the IR response working on my
in your favor,
my smart and all that. So I have an IR, I think, sitting here and listening, you know, that way to it, and measuring, I should say, not listening.
And then
that makes a big difference.
Oh, it does. And at the end of the day, you heard with all the sine waves and pink noise and mono pink noise, because you sat in here while I was still doing a couple of things, and you saw my process. And I don't, whatever the mic says, I'm gonna verify it. You know, totally. As an Air Force guy, it's trust but verify. I trust it, but I'm gonna verify that what it says is correct.
Yeah. Well, that's why you get in there with your ears afterwards.
Yeah,
right?
And we just make changes. And at the end of the day, the car's never really done for us.
No, totally.
You know, even though the car I think sounds great,
even when it should be done, it's not done.
Yeah, and you and I are having this conversation. It's like, well, at some point, are you actually making it better or just different? And then you sometimes go back, you know, just what we were talking about, like Robert did, and sometimes you just go back and you're like, oh, actually, that other tune was better. Yeah. And sometimes it's just the name of the game. Like,
you know, that's the beauty of having a back button on these processors, right? Being able to go all the way back and listen to when the car did perform really well and compare that to where it is, and are you better, are you worse?
Yeah.
You know, in what ways? How does that equate to a score sheet?
100%.
Right?
And that's another thing, you know, and you and I were talking about this, is like, you know, I guess people don't realize it or forget I'm a fairly new competitor. But I asked you, like, I called you up before the Florida show. I'm like, hey, dude, like, with Iasca, like, what are they looking for? Because, like, I don't know. Like, I don't build my car, tune my car for competition. I build it and tune it for me. And when I go to my customers, it's for you.
Yeah.
And then you might get in here, and after seeing on the score sheet, like, oh, well, let's just throw some names out. Harry, Keith, want a little bit more sub bass for Iasca. Okay, well, you go in and might bump it up a little bit. And you and I are in the same boat where we run one tune and one tune only. So, you know, the changes will continue to be made. But at this point, it should be quarter dB, half dB little things.
It's little adjustments, and that's the one thing that I had to relearn. Yeah. You know, from the old days when you're using like EQTs or whatever, you're making pretty big adjustments to hear the difference. With a lot of the digital processors that are out there now, when you get your system dialed, dude, it's amazing what little tiny adjustments do. You can hear it, even though a lot of people tell you can't hear 0.2 dB across 3 bands or something. Yeah. The reality is you can hear it because you can instantaneously A/B them,
100%.
and you're definitely hearing little things. And at this point, we're kind of splitting hairs in a car, right, compared to maybe being in a room with big tower speakers or something like that.
I think the difference is, and you know, this is 100% not a knock on anybody, but when you get a car at Gray's level or this level, you do hear those small differences. But if you have resonances, rattles, and you're not going to hear those small tenths, 2 tenths clicks, because there's still so many other things wrong. But when a car is dialed in, timing phase is perfect, EQ is almost perfect, and it's like those little small changes, they end up being drastic differences. Just like we were listening to Thriller, and we were like 2,500. I literally knocked it down like 0.2 at 2,500, and you were like, yes. And I was like, cool. And that's all it needed.
Yeah, it was just a little hot on the first part of his vocals, and that's, you know, and that's one of those areas where
it's just one of those things.
You're real sensitive. Your hearing's real sensitive in there.
And if people don't know, that's the ear gain region between 2K and 4K. So his shape of his ears and his head is different than mine. So we're going to hear 2,500 slightly different.
Yeah, so, his head's way bigger than mine.
No, it's not. I promise you. Just look at your hat. Oh, snap. But Bree always gets me on that. She's like, you have a big old head. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Can't do nothing about it. But no, it's fun having someone else verify what I did, especially, you know, a competitor like yourself that does really well. And it was cool, like, so thank you for, you know, having me out here. But it was cool, like, essentially wiping the car, starting fresh, and you see me, like, you were right out there with me while I was tuning it. And then I was like, trust my process, and you saw me do my root stuff and go back to smart. And then when you hopped in, you're like, oh, damn. And I was like, cool. I'm happy
you
you're
can hear
happy.
immediately that, especially in the mid bass and sub bass, it was very cohesive at that point, and it was really good to begin with.
It was,
so it's not like it was a piece of crap starting from zero. No, it's good, and we can A/B it, and I'll do that when I have more time. I mean, I'm one of those guys. I have to listen for a long time to really get my head wrapped around what's going on. So it'll 100%. Take me some time to do that, but like right out of the chute, dude, it's pretty awesome. Thanks, I think it's better than what I had or where I was. You know, I'll throw the old SVR tune in it and
just see where that goes. 100%. And that's what you should do. At the end of the day, you might find that SVR tune I really liked. It's called 500. I think I'm going to bump 500 on Miguel's tune, and it's cool. We'll do that. Does that make it better or worse? And those are the cool things about
it. It's easy to do. That's the beauty of
it's all subjective at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, it's your car, and you put all the money in it, and you hired me to tune it. So I'm going to tune it to my abilities. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. And then luckily for you, you know how to tune. So you'll hop in and make some
my
changes.
Expectations, like I said, I told you originally, was just to get the baseline down and make sure that where we were was right. And then you went beyond that with some of the other stuff that you're doing in the car and all 100%. That. And like I said, I'm really happy with where it's at. So
it sounds great. I love the presentation this car gives. It's hard to compete with a big rolling couch when you hop in and you're just so comfortable.
Hey, you can buy any car you want. That's, you know, America's still a free country. Last time I checked. And you know,
my wallet's not free though. Right
whatever,
now.
Dude. You can get these used cheap.
I don't want to use one.
Why not?
Because people beat on it.
No,
just
you don't need a Redeye. I mean, you don't have to get this one. This platform is out there. You can buy a brand new one of these, I think, for like $40,000.
Yeah, with the V6.
Well, whatever. Still got more power in your Mazda. Oh, I went there.
Does it?
I think it does.
That's messed up.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
No, I have a tune on mine now.
Yeah, is it over 300 horsepower?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then maybe. Because I don't know what the Pentastar gets.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the new ones are coming out. They're going to be expensive to start, and I don't know. They might be a better platform than this, the electric ones.
Oh, the electric ones.
But they're going to have that available with the
Hurricane
the inline Hurricane, both versions, from what I understand. And there's a rumor floating around that the Hellcat motor's coming back.
Oh, really?
So I know the TRX, they've kind of talked about how the TRX is going to make a comeback, which means the new version of these cars probably, if they can fit the Hurricane in it, they can usually fit the 6.4 in it. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens. Not that I'm buying another one. I think I'm done.
You think you're done?
Yeah.
But
you never know.
It's a sick build, dude. And that's kind of the way I am with gray. It's like, it sounds good. I love it. I don't want to start fresh on anything else.
And that's the problem, right? You have so much time and money tied invested up in these things. It's hard to start over.
It is. And plus, you start getting emotionally attached to the car. I'm not sure if you do, but I do. It's like, you know, yeah. Well, you also have like 8 cars. So.
Well, I sell cars, buy and sell. Like I just sold my TRX for almost what I paid for it 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Quick sneak peek. That Lexus is dope.
Oh, that might be the next car we do.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
That thing's sick. Well, Mark, thank you again for having me out.
Right, man. No,
do you have anything else you want to tell everyone?
No, not really. See y'all at Aggieland, I guess.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
Well, y'all, peace out. Bye.